usually ask clients what they want on their quilt, and I'll ask a lot of different questions. How often is this going to be washed? Is it going to be a wall hanging? Is it, there's lots of different things that go into it. And every once in a while, people will tell me just do whatever you want. I just love the way you quilt, and just tell me what you think. So that was the case with this one. I like a little background about who's going to be receiving the quilt, and Sarah and I just feel really connected with her because we like the same kinds of music, and we both like hats and boots and things. And anyway, I really like Artsy Fartsy quilts, and her mom wanted a lot of texture, some positive and negative spaces with the quilting and things like that, and just let me have a lot of freedom on what I was going to do. So I took several pictures. I looked at it in black and white and tone on tone and different things so that I could see more about the artwork of this quilt. And so I'll show you some of the things that I see about it and what I tried to put into it as I was quilting. There are lots and lots of circles here. There are lots and lots of interacting circles everywhere, but there are two main circles. There's a bright, fun, peachy salmon pink, happy circle up here, and there's this gorgeous blue circle down here that's much more concrete and sequential, and this one's a little more random and abstract, and this is the extrovert and this is the introvert, and these are things that are popping through my head as I'm looking at this quilt. And so I didn't want to focus on all the circles. I wanted to focus on these two circles, and so I wanted that to pop the most. There's a definite stitching circle around both of these, but this one I wanted to stay contained. There are 4 leaves to the inside of this circle, and on this one I really wanted to emphasize the 4 petals or the 4 leaves going out. And so this one is very fluid and nice, soft, ripply lines, where this one is much more straight lines. This has a flower in the center, this has a flower in the center, but this flower is small and contained, and it's straighter lines, and it's very symmetrical, and this one is just very free-flowing, and it stretches out beyond its boundaries and borders, and so those are some of the things that I really wanted to incorporate with this quilt right off the top of my bat when I first looked at it. Then, because it has so many pieces and there's lots of different shapes and things, I really wanted some things to pop and then some things to be stitched down. And if you stitch down everything, then nothing pops. And if you have everything popping and nothing stitched down, then it's just a big marshmallow. So one of the things that I really tried to do was to have one piece puffy and the next one stitched, and the next one puffy and the next one stitched. But I didn't want it to be that concrete and sequential. I wanted it to be a little bit more artsy fartsy than that. So when I started with the peachy pink happy extroverted one here, I really liked the pink fabrics that were just sort of sprinkled elsewhere. So I really stitched a lot of the pinky peach salmon ones throughout, and then I started picking and choosing which ones to pop and which ones to stitch. And I like to interpret the fabric that is there. I've told you that before. So like on this particular print, there are all these wonderful little flowers, and they're kind of squarish, but they've got these little ripply edges, and it's like this wiggle crosshatch that I do on quilts. A lot of vintage quilts, I will sometimes do this wonderful little crosshatch, and it just worked perfectly with that fabric. Some of the fabrics have leaves and vines, and this is kind of a bamboo, and so I made sure I had a few little breaks in the bamboo so that it really popped and things like that. And so I did some little feathery leafy things on some, and then some just really reminded me of water. And I love these little these little seaweed strings of bubbles on some, and then others, they just have a texture, and I didn't want the stitch to really show. I just wanted to follow the texture of the color, and so it kind of looks like marble and rock and things like that. And so anyway, and then these little pink ones, I love this. I like this fabric. Sarah likes the Impressionist paintings, and I thought these kind of looked like little brush marks, and sort of looked like city apartments with the lights showing in the windows and stuff. And so anyway, I just really enjoyed the art quality of this quilt, and yeah, had a lot of fun with it. So when we turn this quilt around, you often hear me say when I'm looking at the front side of the quilt, I don't want my quilting to be wow and obnoxious, unless you want that, and then we can do that. But I want it to just blend in, and I want you to see the quilt first. I want you to see the fabric and the patterns and things. But from the back side of the quilt, now we can see what I do. Now this has a nice batik on the back, and so there's a lot of movement and color on the back anyway. But you can really see the texture of the quilting that I did from the back. And I don't know if the lighting is quite right here where you can see it real easily, but as I was talking about, we've got these two circles. We have this extroverted flower type circle on the top, and then we have this more concrete and sequential and introverted blue circle down here, and it's much more orderly and organized and compact and maintained within itself. But then all these little side things, if you come in a little closer, there's just all these wonderful little stories. Remember I was saying about the city apartments, and then there's the ocean and the shells, and some of these things kind of look like little butterflies, and it's just really cool. Every time you look at the quilting, the stitching from the back side of the quilt, you see all these different things, all these different stories. And I love the fact that some areas are just nice and poofed. There's not a lot going on there. And then there's all these little outlines of the pattern is still there. You can still see the piecework of it. And then you see all this texture of the positives and the negatives in the spaces. And as a machine quilter, I really enjoy the pretty backsides to quilts. And yeah, it's a different appreciation for the quilt. But on a lot of the quilts I do, I hope that you actually end up with two quilts in one. You can have the colorful side up and out and displayed, or you can turn it around and you can enjoy the back side of it as well. So when I'm picking out what I'm going to be using on the quilt, I look at the fabrics. I take quite a few different threads to decide what I want to coordinate, and are there some that just are going to hide too much and not even be interesting, or are some of them too loud and obnoxious? But on this particular quilt, oh my goodness, I used about a dozen different colors. I like options, and actually one of my favorite options were these two kind of loud and obnoxious ones. This hot pink and orange and gold was really one of my favorite options, and then this nice quiet, calm, cool blue. But yes, speaking of options, not only do I like options on threads, but I like options with my rulers and things too. So let's look at those. Most of this was very freehand, and I wasn't using rulers. I was just moving the machine around as I was going. But there were a lot of places where I needed to have a little bit of control to follow things. So some of it was just totally freehand with no help, and then every once in a while I was using rulers to help keep my foot of the machine just where I wanted. And I find that a straight edge is oftentimes easier to work with and just keep bringing things around and just pivoting a little bit. It's hard to find a ruler that's going to fit just exactly and precisely with every line and curve that you want, but you'd think that this curve would work easier, but yeah, no, not really. It really was easier to deal with a straight line and just keep moving it. But I love the fact that I've got a number of rulers that fit into places nicely. I like the ones with the handles from Quilter's Apothecary. I do have a number of rulers that are just flat without any handles. Sometimes I tape a couple of them together so there's a little something more to hang on to. But yeah, depending on just where I was working, I used a few rulers a little bit here and there. I tend to change my bobbin thread as well if I'm changing color of the top thread, because I want it all to look so pretty. So I tend to change my threads quite a bit. And then I wanted to also tell you the name of this pattern and who made it. So I have to find it on my phone here in just a second. This pattern is by John Flynn of Bernitex, and it's called the Wheel of Mystery. And this one was a laser cut. So it was a kit purchased, and Margaret had a lot of fun stitching it all together and picking and choosing what colors to put together and stuff. But yeah, it was a pre-cut laser cut kit, and really, really fun and cool. So I'm sure glad that you came and joined me today on this quilt tutorial. So come back and see me again. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, SederQuilts, or follow me on Facebook at SederQuilts, or check on my website at SederQuilts.com. Got a little theme going there? Kind of caught that, didn't you? Yeah. So anyway, thanks so much, and yeah, toodaloo. See you around.